describe the concept of planning regions and explain the environmental and the economic factors in the creation of such regions. Planning region का मतलब क्या है? So you all know what a formal region is. You all know what the nodal region is, given by Whittlesey committee. There is one more concept called as the planning region. इसका objective क्या है? Planning for some objective, which in geography is invariably developmental planning. And planning means managing flow systems. How will goods move? How will investments move? How will the people move? From where will we have labor? From where will we get water? From where will we bring maybe raw material? How will the market sell to its customers? Planning is roads, planning is railways. So planning region fundamentally is one type of a nodal region. Okay, there is production center, marketing center, and how you link them. So planning regions are one special type of nodal regions where all flow systems, all networks, they are designed to achieve certain developmental objectives. In geographical planning, it's about development planning. The node can be urban area, the node can be some ports, the node can be some transport hubs, airports, railway junctions. The nodes can be market locations that hold the entire area together. Now, a good planning region का कुछ properties हैं. Write down, please. Planning regions in geography are defined as regions that are demarcated for the purpose of developmental planning. So it is a concept in regional development where the objectives of development itself can be defined. Okay, within hyphen right down. It can be agricultural planning regions, it can be industrial planning regions, it can be urban planning regions. So you can define आप जो करना चाहते हो. And urban planning and industrial planning, rural agricultural planning, it can be port-based planning, whatever. And more recent terms, it can also be environmental planning. Environmental planning. So planning regions can be any of this. Next point, any development planning is about managing flow systems. Okay, flow systems which can be raw material access, comma, it can be capital investment planning, planning for labor movement, planning for integrating market with consumers are also planning. Social indicators based planning, such as education, health. Okay, next. So as flow networks, any planning region, it fundamentally will be a nodal region centered around a port, an urban center, a transport junction, a port, around urban center, a transport junction, or planning with a decision-making entity at the node, which can hold the region together. Okay? So what is a planning region? It fundamentally is a nodal region where we have something flowing and we are managing that flows. Next slide down. A good planning region has the following properties. Number one, it must be large enough to be self-sufficient in basic resources. मतलब ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि जब प्लान कर रहे हो कोई रीजन का, डोंट मेक अ वेरी स्मॉल प्लान रीजन. तो उसमें क्या होगा? द रीजन डजंट हैव रिसोर्स. हर बार आपको बाहर से आना होगा, which can be expensive, sometimes not feasible also. So always better the planning region is big enough so that इसी के अंदर में coal भी है, iron ore भी है, agriculture भी है, there are people also here. Then you can plan properly. This is the problem of the northeastern states. They are so small that they cannot develop isolated with other regions. और उनका बनता नहीं है collaboration because of tribal diversities. So the planning region, a good one should be large enough. That's one. Number two, it must not be very large with too much of diversity because it will be difficult to integrate the region. जैसे example India में है UP. It's a very large state. Okay. Planning of entire UP as one entity is very difficult. We keep on talking about no Bundelkhand alag karo, separate Purvanchal part, separate the Western UP, the Harit Pradesh. This one problem. The example of a very large unmanageable region is UP in India. तो बहुत छोटा भी ना हो और बहुत बड़ा भी नहीं हो. A third very important thing is a planning region must be internally cohesive. What this means? There must be some element of homogeneity which can hold the region together. It must be internally cohesive. So this is essentially some kind of cultural homogeneity hona chahiye. If there are too many diverse cultural groups, वो region टूट जाएगा if not well governed. And this is the reason why India went for linguistic basis of states. The state of Karnataka together, Maharashtra together, Gujarat together, because language is a very powerful integrator. Despite all religion differences, despite all caste differences, despite all economic disparities, language same hai, it can keep the region together. An example of some kind of homogeneity. So I must have enough resource, not very large for breaking up, some type of homogeneity also. The fourth is, okay, there must be consistency in decision making without divisive conflicts in decision making hierarchies. मतलब ये है, the region must come under one authority. ऐसा नहीं कि आधा is in Punjab, आधा is in Haryana. That's चंडीगढ़ का problem है. Shared region becomes a challenge. The homogeneity of decision making, homogeneity of some element of culture, resource diversity, plus it must be not very small or not very large either. अगर बहुत बड़ा हो गया, you can't manage, and very small will not have resources. So these are some elements of a good planning region. Okay, write down. Planning regions, therefore, are demarcated on the basis of the purpose and the nature of planning objective. And therefore, they are not solely based on a single criteria demarcation. The following are the environmental and economic factors in the creation of the region. So whenever you have a region planning, you can't ignore the environmental disaster vulnerability. ये पहला factor है. Write down. Environmental disaster vulnerabilities cannot be ignored. One. Number two, the region must have some diversity in environmental factors. Otherwise, it cannot diversify its environmental risk. मतलब क्या है कि अगर flood region है तो एक dry region भी होना चाहिए. Otherwise पता चलेगा हर बार flood में you are having floods. So it must have some diversity. तो elevation भी हो और थोड़ा plains भी हो. It must have some forest. It must have some non-forest. It must have some river plains. It will also have elevated dry regions. It must have some diversity of the environmental factors. Third, environmental assets must be well documented, and the economic planning must be in convergence with the environmental resources. You must have some documentation. ये environmental resources हैं, floodplains हैं, maybe minerals हैं, maybe it has a very good river, it has a very good coast maybe. So when you do the economic planning, keep that in mind. अगर coast है, yes, coast based beach tourism. अगर river है, maybe navigation based planning. अगर agriculture land है, agriculture industries का होना चाहिए. अगर forestry regions हैं, the forestry economy. So environmental assets must converge with our economic planning also. Next, the dependence on the environment must be objectively established, particularly if there are local indigenous tribes and populations. Think of island region planning. In island region, आपको पता होना चाहिए, the tribes are dependent on the nature. If there are environment dependent communities, you must also document that properly for comprehensive development. ठीक है? One more important point, environment factors में, the environment's carrying capacity must be established, particularly with respect to resource extraction and waste management. Okay, for ensuring water conservation, land degradation, problems of deforestation. Now we must manage resource extraction problems. का mining हो रहा है, okay, somewhere forestry activities हैं. You must account for that and also account for how we are disposing waste. And recent times में planning regions must account for or must incorporate climate change resilient infrastructure. Basically cyclones, heat waves, cloud bursts. So these are the list of what are the environmental factors you will take care of. Okay, don't ignore, okay, the vulnerabilities, don't ignore the resources, don't ignore, okay, the local population, don't ignore climate change issues. What are the environmental issues you will take care of? The next, what are the economic things you will take care of? What are the economic factors in the creation of such regions? One is, okay, economic resource mapping. What type of minerals, what type of resources, you must have good mapping. Planning regions must map economic disparities in the region. Because बताया था आपको कि development is also taking care of inequalities. You must know हमारे region में, okay, what are the rich pockets, what are the poor pockets. So in the region, I must do that. Third, economic integration of the region, which is linking the resource centers, production centers, and the markets. So economic factors may account for connectivity projects. Roads kahan banega? Okay, where will we have airports or where do we have railways junctions? So connectivity is a very important factor in planning region. Uske baad, planning for location of relevant growth poles within the planning region and ensuring inter-regional linkages of the growth poles with adjoining regions. The fact is, when you have a planning region, okay, and you say this is the growth pole, so you must ensure the growth pole has some linkage with another region. Because whatever the growth pole produces, because zaruri nahi hai, it always will be locally consumed. It will be exported. You would want it to export for that matter. So what are the economic factors you will keep in mind? Where are the resources? What are the inequalities, if any? I must keep in mind whether the region is properly economically integrated. Roads, railways, okay, some kind of functional linkages. I must ensure, okay, that I have identified locations of growth poles and also ensured the growth poles are linked with the other regions. Okay, the next point, economic planning of the region should include identifying prospective labor, their social development and skill acquisition, and integrating them with the production centers. You know, how am I thinking? I have to plan for development. I'll plan what? Land, labor, capital. To this I added also connectivity. Aim discuss kar rahe hain. You have a region, know the land well. You have the region, connect them well. You have a region, integrate them with, okay, investments and market. And also plan for the labor. Kahan labor hai, train them properly and integrate them with the production system. The growth pole must have employment prospects for the local labor. Is it okay, all of you here? So, in the answer to words, you can take up a case study if you want to take up. Take up Bhilai case study or take up best is NCR planning case study. NCR. I have not done this for you guys right now, or maybe for some of you I may have done while doing urban geography. NCR planning. NCR is Delhi and its adjoining states. Delhi, Alwar, Bulandshahr, Delhi, Faridabad, Gurgaon, Ballabgarh, Delhi and Rohtak. So this is your Delhi NCR. And this is an write down case study Delhi NCR. The objective was integrated development of Delhi with its adjoining regions. So it includes settlement of okay, the partitioned refugees, comma, development of industries in and around Delhi, comma, building community and cultural center-based localities. The fourth, physical integration of Delhi NCR. Physical integration of Delhi NCR with road rail connectivity. But NCR planning का main problem था ये road और rail connectivity अच्छे से नहीं हुआ. Because if it was done well, then Delhi's population would prefer living outside. But road connectivity nahi hai. All of them have converged in Delhi and Delhi has become crowded. Now we have metros coming up, railway lines coming up. We have bypass coming up. So in Delhi NCR planning, the biggest limitation was of non-development of connectivity infrastructure. Non-development or non-takeoff of connectivity infrastructure. Okay? What is concept of planning region? Okay. What are the features of a good planning region? And explain environmental and economic factors in creating such regions. And wherever possible, example dete rehna.